Hi, everyone, and welcome to God's Plan, Your Part, a podcast where our goal is to read the entire Bible in a year, seeking to understand God's plan of redemption while discovering daily and practically your part in it.
Hey, welcome back. Today we are looking at quite a few Psalms. We're looking at Psalm 1 to 2, we're looking at Psalm 15, Psalm 22 to 24, 47, and 68. So it feels like a Psalm buffet today. So there's quite a bit to cover. We are not going to cover every single one of these Psalms. I think we're just going to highlight some of the ones that stick out to us.
So I really like chapter 1. It's kind of near and dear to my heart because we chose some of the verses from chapter 1 for our son's dedication at church. But it is kind of cool because our study Bibles talk about how this psalm, this first chapter, is considered to be the gateway into the entire book of Psalms. It kind of sets us up to understand kind of the idea of righteousness and being separated from like wicked or wicked ways. And that the Psalms are kind of like this place where you can, like verse 3 says, be like a tree that are planted by streams of water, yielding fruit in season. Leaf doesn't wither. All that he does, he prospers.
That idea of a tree next to streams of water is really powerful when you consider what first century Israel most likely looked like. Because today Israel most likely looks the same way. There's not a lot of trees out in the desert, but the trees next to water grow and bear fruit much easier. And so it is a powerful image. I'm thinking of En-Gedi, like when David was at En-Gedi. It's like this beautiful spring surrounded by plants in the middle of the desert. Like everything around it is dead. But there's these living plants and streams and stuff in En-Gedi because it's so special. So I think that is one of the images in David's mind when he's writing the psalm.
They compare it to the wicked man who is like the chaff that the wind drives away. So like I think that probably gives a really good picture for what kind of like what you're alluding to with the opposite, but makes a lot of sense.
I love that this righteous person's delight is in the law of the Lord, and he meditates on it day and night. Now, David's understanding of the law of the Lord would have been just the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible mostly, and primarily the law of Moses. And so when you think about what it would mean to meditate on that day and night, it's taking very seriously the law that God has given, and just basically like thinking through every detail of your life and every detail of your day through that lens of what God has intended. I think, we obviously as Christians deal with life a little bit differently. We're not filtering everything through the law of Moses, but we should still be living every moment of our lives to God's glory. And it is good just day and night to think about how we've done that or how we're going to do that. I think it's good.
Well, then we also said, I don't know, did you want to say anything else about chapter 1?
I do have one final thought, and it's funny because I think we're trying to hit 3 Psalms, so I need to hurry up and talk. I've been reading and thinking a lot about judgment. It sounds like a super downer. Judgment and like there's different views on hell. There's different views on what happens to people when they die. It is crazy to me that anybody could read the entire Bible and believe that there is not some final judgment. That anybody could read the entire Bible and believe that righteous people end up in a place of the righteous and wicked people end up in a place of the wicked. We have read so many Psalms that talk about judgment, that talk about final judgment, that talk about wicked being cut off. So this idea of like universalism where God is so gracious that he saves everyone, the Bible just doesn't reflect that. And so it's not, this is not doom and gloom, I promise. It's just like, wow, like the Bible clearly teaches that there is a final judgment and the righteous go to a good place and the wicked are cut off.
Well, I think to pretend that it's not is like such a disservice and like,
yeah, it's so disingenuous.
Like a crazy responsibility that we have to like tell the truth.
Yeah. And this is coming from verse 5. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous, for the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. And so this concept of perishing is central, I think, to the biblical text, like the whole thing. And it's just important to remember.
For sure. So we move into another psalm. Obviously, we said we weren't going to touch on every single one, but 22, and I kind of picked 23 a little bit. Stuck out, but 22 has a lot of parallels, I guess not necessarily even just parallels, but like prophecy toward Jesus and what he is going to do and say in the New Testament.
If you're curious what Jesus was thinking on the cross, I don't think we actually have to dive too deep to figure out what was going through his mind on the cross, because Jesus quotes Psalm 22 on the cross. So when he says, I think in the New Testament, it's in Aramaic, but he says, Eli, lama sabachthani. I'm sure I butchered that. But that's in Matthew. But what he's saying in Aramaic is, my God, why have you forsaken me? Which is how Psalm 22 starts out. And then you'll notice, you should definitely, like, if you at least stick around for the reading or read it for yourself, when you know that Psalm 22 is what Jesus quoted when he died on the cross, and then you read the actual chapter, it's wild. Because literally it's like a narrative of Jesus.
Yep. It's really weird, especially, so there were a couple verses specifically. Verse 7 says, all who see me mock me, they make mouths at me, they wag their heads. Then same for verse 18, and this is in chapter 22. Verse 18 says, they divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. So like right there is just like, whoa, that's kind of insane, because those are things that all play out.
And it's wildly specific.
Crucified.
It's very specific. There's also like the when they're calling out to Jesus, like, well, you're the Son of God, like, let him help you. That's in Psalm 22.
Oh, I was gonna say that's verse 8. He trusts the Lord, let him deliver him, let him rescue him, for he delights in him.
So if you've never read Psalm 22, I encourage you to do so. It is faith affirming, because it's like, wow, David wrote this so long ago, and Jesus literally walks this out as God's suffering servant. And so the parallels, you can look at Matthew 27 and you can compare that with Psalm 22. It's crazy how close they fit together. And scholarship tells us that these are written very far apart by clearly different authors at clearly different times. So that there's not even a case to be made that somebody sat down and crafted Psalm 22 and then sat down at another desk and crafted the story of Jesus. History just proves that is not true. And so here you have the psalmist writing literally what is going to happen to Jesus, and Jesus quoting it as it happens to him. It's really powerful.
So then finally, chapter 23, I just really appreciate this. Our son, actually, he's in first grade, and he has memorized, I don't think he knows that he's memorized the entire chapter, but he memorized this entire chapter.
They tricked him.
For Bible memory at school. So when I actually heard over, I've been hearing it piece by piece as he's been memorizing for school, but listening to the whole thing and knowing that my son has that in his memory is like, whoa, that's very cool. But it's just this really comforting psalm, describing God as the shepherd of the sheep that he cares for. And then it also says in verses 5 and 6 that it kind of reflects or describes God as the host who cares for his guests. So it's just, I don't know, I think it's just a really cool, helpful reminder for those moments when maybe you just kind of feel like you're in need of that comfort from the Lord. So anything stick out to you from that chapter?
I can draw a parallel here. Psalm 23:6. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That is judgment language. You're going to live with God forever in eternity. We believe that. And that has been, we've believed that since, I don't know, creation or something. So.
Well, and I really appreciate verse 4, especially. I feel like that one is kind of the kicker for me. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. So just knowing that regardless of the situation, good, bad, evil, the Lord is there to kind of guard and protect you with his comforting staff.
Just as a side note, in Israel, definitely when this would have been written, and definitely in parts of Israel still today, there are a lot of sheep there, and there's a lot of shepherds because there's a lot of sheep. So I remember times we'd be driving down the highway and there'd just be tons of sheep, a flock. I almost said a herd of sheep. I think it's a flock. A flock of sheep on the side of the road, all over the hillside. So it was very common for people to see sheep and shepherds. And so David is using common language, common examples. Also, he was a shepherd himself, so he understood what it meant to shepherd sheep. And this is also a term that is going to be used in the New Testament by Jesus and then also by the apostles in how people should pastor the church and lead the church as good shepherds. Ultimately, Jesus is the good shepherd who lays down his life for the sheep. But that concept sticks for representing pastoring into the church age. And so Psalm 23 is a really powerful psalm in understanding pastoral leadership, ultimately as we submit to God and follow his leadership. So Tom, a lot of these psalms are excellent. You should definitely read them. You should take some time to meditate on them for yourself. So we invite you to stick around, listen to the reading yourself, or go read it. What do you think is a good your part for today?
Well, I think just starting out the Psalms is encouraging to me, where they talk about being planted by streams of water, but then also, for me especially, Psalm 23 as well, like that comfort.
Just knowing that God is taking care of us.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. How do you apply that? Those just really stuck out to me.
Relationship with God is critical. Like if you're a believer, you need to build in your relationship with God to hear his voice and follow his lead, because sheep uniquely know the voice of their shepherd. So if somebody talks to a flock of sheep and they're not the shepherd, they don't listen to them. And I think it's a powerful concept for us to know the voice of God and follow the voice of God and only the voice of God. So I encourage you to do that today. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks so much for listening to God's Plan, Your Part. If anything stuck out to you, if you have any questions, or if you'd like to receive a Bible, you can email us at godsplanyourpart@gmail.com. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, please consider supporting us through the link in our description. We love that you're on this journey with us, and we hope you have a great day. See you tomorrow.